was here at the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden that the young Elisabeth Schwarzkopf made her magnificent London debut nearly 40 years ago. A few years later, she was widely regarded as one of the greatest sopranos of the century. For 3 decades, her career was moulded and guided by a man who was to become her husband, Walter Legg, an innovative British recording executive. He directed her towards her best repertoire, Mozart and Richard Strauss, and he turned her into the greatest female leader singer of the post-war generation. In Alan Benson's film, Elisabeth Schwarzkopf, now 70, talks about her life and her work and delivers a masterclass at the Britten Peers School in Aldborough.
I think I had a voice which was capable of laughter in the voice, and that doesn't mean laughing, it means shot with laughter, and could fall into the kind of sadness of life without being maudlin. I think I always kept with that voice on a level whereby it never fell into any kind of sentimental abyss, feeling-wise or singing-wise or sound-wise. It always was on a level where it was translated into apt sound. When I was 7 years old, I was put into the hand of a very modern-thinking piano teacher. She taught the children in the way later Karl Orff did his methods for teaching children music, from hand signs and rhythmical things and so on. And that is where I got really the foundation for sight reading and for transposing and so on, and harmonic values and whatever, all kinds of things you have to know. And you usually don't know when you suddenly discover you have got 2 vocal cords, which are rather good. I learned all the things already as a youngster, which people who suddenly, when they are 17, discovered, or somebody else discovers, he has a voice, she has a voice, and now he has to learn all the ground rules of music. It is pathetic, pathetic. You know, we have master classes in all kinds of places, and once there were next to me master classes of André Gertler with the violinists, and of Navarro with the cellist. Well, those people have been learning the instruments from when they are 3 years old. They get their first little violin, and so on and so on. They have mastered all that is to learn musically when they're 12, 13 years old, and then they can concentrate on performing already. Ours have to do it when they're 17, hopefully. Not quite where you ought to go. And then you go to Einmal, it goes higher then. Cover. Yeah. Don't just do mal's mir die Brust zerspringen, and then over. Mal's mir die Brust zerspringen, mal's mir die Brust into springen, springen, springen. Yeah. It's not a child, this girl. I'm trying to teach those youngsters those few silly physical things you have to know about singing, which are really, you can count them in one hand if only they would do them. It's in a crescendo, that's why. You see, it's a springen. It's in a crescendo. That is why. You can have a Stradivarius there. If you don't know how to play it, it will never sound. It will be a scratchy something. And you can have a mediocre instrument. If you play it very well, it may seem more than mediocre. It will never seem a Stradivarius.
Elisabeth Schwarzkopf began serious singing studies when she was 18. She enrolled at the Berlin High School of Music in 1934. 4 years later, she auditioned for the Charlottenburg Opera in Berlin and was given her first operatic role.
And this audition, they told me, well, we're having Parsifal tomorrow. We are short of one flower maid. If you want to step in, we give you the chance. And I said, of course. And I had never seen Parsifal, never heard it, never nothing. So in the night I learned, not singing, but just reading it and getting it into my head. And then I went to the opera house, went through it once with the correpetitor. And in the evening I was in the dressing room with all the other ladies, and I was whistling my music, and they nearly killed me because I was whistling. And that is a very bad luck thing. Well, it didn't bring me bad luck at all. I nearly fell in all the traps on the stage because I was glued to the conductor and didn't see what happened underneath me. But I survived. I've survived ever since.
Then you went on to play a number of smaller parts.
Oh, it was 2 years hard labor with all the walk-on parts you can possibly imagine. And, well, there are hundreds of little small so-and-sos of 3 notes, 4 notes, something.
And again, do you find that useful, looking back on it? What value do you place on that now?
I'm eternally grateful that I was made to start in a big opera house in very small roles. I think nothing better could happen to a young singer.
Why is that exactly?
Well, because in a small house, you will be forced to do all the major roles already. When they think you can sing it, you have those notes in your throat, you're made to sing them, and you are finished in a few years. As a youngster, you should be nursed up. The voice should be nursed carefully up, never forced into something above her or his possibility, vocal, physical possibilities. And that I was very lucky with being a nobody in this major opera house.
Geschmeckt hat's hoffentlich allen, was? Zigarrenbrand, meine Herren, jetzt beginnt der Ernst das Leben.
During this early period, Schwarzkopf supplemented her income by singing for radio broadcasts and occasional appearances in feature films. Despite the outbreak of war in 1939, cultural life in Berlin continued, and Schwarzkopf resolutely pursued her singing career.
I was sitting in the air raid. During the air raids, everybody else was trembling as I've never seen and didn't know it was possible. And one didn't, of course, as a youngster, know actually what was involved in dying or being wounded or so. So we had it perhaps easier to concentrate on what we were doing. And that was what I was doing. I was reading my scores and learning by heart down there in the cellar. And all the other things which you had to wade through acres of glass, and you had no windows, and you had sometimes to assemble things from the balcony which still kept up, which had fallen from the sky like bits of human bodies. And you still had to concentrate on this singing. I think any great singer has to have built in this desire of shoving everything aside, not noticing what's going around him or around her, and concentrating on this, getting the voice, working with this voice and working it out and learning all there is to learn.
This determination to succeed was rewarded when in 1940 the director of the Charlottenburg Opera gave Schwarzkopf her first major role, Zerbinetta in Strauss's Ariadne auf Naxos.
And I said foolhardily, yes, of course. I learned it very fast. It was no great checks for me to learn it. But then I also sang it. Oh, dear. And I had a marvelous colleague, a very wonderful baritone. We had Carl Schmidt-Walter, who was our Don Giovanni and everything, and a wonderful artist, wonderful leader singer, too. And he said, my dear Fräulein Schwarzkopf, Sie haben ein großes Talent, but you can't sing. You have a big talent, but you can't sing. Especially not that role. If you like, I'll try and give you an introduction to the very famous Maria Ivorina. I had heard of her. She was no longer singing. And so I went, and she was very cool and very... said, well, I'm sorry, you have to start from zero. I said, but for God's sake, I've got to earn my living. I've got to sing all those, the Hirtenknabe, the thing, and the Ida, and the Fledermaus, and the this and that, and the other, all 5 bars, but I have to live. Sure, this is not my concern. You must start from zero. How you combine the two things, I don't know. But she warned me, it won't be easy, you see. You make up your mind, it will be a terrible job. And a terrible job it was, for her as well as for me. What I then found out what this job was is building a voice. You see, she heard when I sang for her, she heard in the voice a certain quality on some notes, on some vowel, on some notes. And she still tells me what that quality was. It was a special kind of joyful, light, sunny sound in the voice. And she heard that she could be doing things with this voice and build not only this quality over the voice, but all kinds of other qualities which she herself had. You know, she was one of the most humorous actresses and singers on stage, but also, and comic actresses, but also one of the most tragic actresses on stage. And she had it in her voice, this quality of humor, wit, pathos, tragedy, everything. Now, I didn't obviously have the quality of pathos or sad sound. She got this all out of me as a quality of sound.
Die Liebe von Zigeunerstamm, es sagt nach Rechte nicht Gesetz und Macht. Liebst du mich nicht, bin ich entflammet, und wenn ich lieb, nimm dich in Acht. Liebst du mich nicht, bin ich in heißer Lieb für dich entflammt. Und wenn ich liebe,
when you have the ear for quality, which of course she had, and which a singer and a singing teacher must have, they cannot just strive for loudness, for top notes, for stridency, for cutting through. This she all abhorred, and I ever abhorred that always. And it has been abhorred by generations of singers, not only my generation, but all the previous generations didn't go for stridency, ever. They went for carrying power, not for cutting through an orchestra, for carrying over an orchestra, which is an entirely different sound imagination. And it is the much healthier because the voices last much longer if you don't cut or pierce. And so she discovered that and she told me where this quality was. She made me listen to it. She said, listen, this is it there. Do the next note, do a note, 1/2 note lower down, 1/2 note higher, take another vowel, try to match the quality of this vowel to the next vowel, and so on. And that goes over the whole range, to get the personal timbre And that is a great asset because that is what you are born with.
Schwarzkopf progressed rapidly under Ivo Goon's tuition, and the young singer's reputation began to spread. After the Allied victory in 1945, she became a principal soprano with the great Vienna State Opera, singing important roles including Gilda in Rigoletto, Constanza in Il Seraglio, and Susanna in The Marriage of Figaro. At that time, Walter Legg, an ambitious recording executive from EMI, was traveling in Central Europe, signing up distinguished musicians for his company.
She and Carlos were the two best I've ever had to deal with. I recorded Zauberflöte with Beecham in Berlin, and she was in the chorus. I must have been blind, I didn't see her.
Yeah, we were
and then I met her in, you see, I got friends of mine who were on military service in the Mediterranean to listen into the German radio and report to me anything that was particularly good, and that name cropped up. So she was one of the people I was looking for in Vienna. And I invited her to have a drink at a cafe. And
Café Mozart.
Café Mozart.
Sure. Next to the Opera House.
Opposite. And she said well, I think you told the story, haven't you?
No, I haven't told the story. What do
No, I offered her a contract, and she said, I want a proper audition. I said, well, I've heard you privately at a friend's house. You probably didn't know I was there. And she said, I don't want you to buy a cat in a sack, and I don't want you to give me less than I'm worth.
Anyway, we went along the Ring to the Musikverein and went into one of the little rooms there, okay, and I played the piano and sang something. I can't remember whatever it was for the audition I did. Well, and this, and another song, and another this, and a bit of an aria, and a Pamina, and a bit of this, and a bit of Susanna, and I said, yes, in spite of you singing for me, I still offer you the contract.
She went through the mill that I knew I got something that one could form into what one wanted.
What do you think Walter Legg saw in your voice? Because
the possibility of singing Hugo Wolf. Later there came Strauss and all those other things, and Mozart. But it goes all very well together. Strauss, Wolf, Mozart. It goes well in a singer's throat. But the singer's throat for those three things isn't enough. It needs quite a different mind and quite a different kind of imagination of sounds, which as a young singer, when you have this white, silvery voice, you don't have. You don't know that you have it in yourself until somebody comes and pulls it out of you. You know that Walter Legg was really the specialist for Hugo Wolf. It was his great love, Hugo Wolf, and he said, now, my child, you will see what work with me will be like. Come along and I want you to sing Hugo Wolf. Okay, I had been singing this song many times before. And he got an accompanist, and Karajan also came to hear what that girl was going to do. And then it took about 2 hours, I would say. That's a song of 2 pages and I think it lasts a minute and a half or so, something like that. Portamento is an overflow of feeling. Well, now, if you see me going through Hugo Wolf now through this song with young singers, it takes also quite a very long time to arrive at any kind of result. Hieß dich kommen, Band. Wer hieß dich kommen? It's allowed. It's F on F. You can on the bar. Yeah. When it was flat, it went flat. Careful. That is it. And hast went certainly too far into the chest. Walk right down. No. Yeah. Keep it there where you have Gedanken. Then hast. Yeah. Okay.
From the day they met, Schwarzkopf and Walter Legg formed a unique musical partnership. Legg not only produced a vast catalogue of her records, but became the most important influence on her career. He became her teacher, her critic, and her inspiration. He managed all her engagements, and later he married her.
He knew so many things which were really uncannily too. And he knew what I should be studying soon or later, or what I would be coming into it, or what role would lead up to what other role, and so on. And Walter was the first one to play for me, significant records, not only of singers, but of instrumentalists. How often he played me Fritz Kreisler, I can't tell you. And how good that was for Strauss, for Richard Strauss, Johann Strauss, for the Viennese music. Kreisler is really the embodiment of Viennese music. It seems invented at the spur of the moment, and it has elegance, it has dash, it has softness, it has heart, it has gaiety, it has anything you want without being sentimental. It has sentiment, but not sentimentality. And that's one of the things which Walter abhorred, sentimentality. I still keep on pointing out to the singers that the singer's voice can only be compared to the string instruments, not to any other. You see, we are this instrument which has a flowing way of producing sound. That's why we can do real legato as the string instruments, drawn out like on one bow of a violinist. So, you see, I did learn from the string instrument.
In 1947, Schwarzkopf left Vienna and joined the Covent Garden Company for 3 years. This period saw the greatest expansion in her repertoire when she sang in a variety of operas. She subsequently made regular appearances at the Salzburg Festival and La Scala, where in 1952 she made her debut in what was to become her greatest role, the Marschallin in Strauss's Der Rosenkavalier.
Komm
You see, it is an opera for everybody in the audience. You find yourself there. A woman finds herself as a young girl, as a middle-aged girl, as an elderly woman. Man finds himself as a young boy, as a middle-aged one, as an old one. They find themselves all there on stage, in their past, in their future, It's a fantastic piece of writing on Hofmannsthal's part to start with. And then the music is so fitting and so revealing to the characters and to all what's happening there that I don't think there comes a more human and revealing opera anywhere along.
And the Marschallin, what's the attraction of that to you as a role to sing?
Well, in my case, you see, I was so lucky that my first Rosenkavaliers were conducted by Karajan. And Karajan is able, when he wants to take the orchestra away, so even you can then sing on a whisper if you have to. And you have to go down to a whisper sometimes in this song. The acting boils down to maybe relaxing your spine, or maybe lowering your eyelids, or maybe looking halfway up, or maybe taking a bit bigger breath. It really boils down to next to nothing. If you are sitting with yourself alone, what do you act? You don't. You don't. You may be playing unconsciously with your fingers, or you don't. You think. You show me the great actor who does body work when he thinks only. That's not necessary. In fact, it's wrong. I must say, the voice was really something quite unique, and it was very, very good singing. Huh?
By the mid-50s, while Schwarzkopf was captivating audiences everywhere with her operatic performances, she was becoming equally known for her recitals of Lieder, the musical settings of original poems written in German.
A sense of poetry. Well, that is the key. Imagination, imagination, imagination. For instance, if you are not able to imagine the country where this plays, the town where it plays, the room where that person is, the situation where the person is in, You can't do it, you know. If you can't imagine that you're talking down to a lover or up to the cross or things like that, you cannot do it physically, but you have to imagine it.
Lieber bleib ich hier, lächelte Krautel einen Blick, der saget, dass ich ausgeklaget. Sieh nicht dann mit dir, bleib ich ewig hier, bleib ich ewig hier.
You see, when you have been doing an operatic part, it will take you let's say 1 day, 2 days, sometimes 3 days, regarding what the operatic part was, to get the voice to this fine painting, detail painting instrument again. It is also a mental outlook which you have to then alter the voice from the opera to the lead, almost certainly. For instance, if you sing yourself in on a day you have to sing Rosenkavalier, it is a certain way of sound you have to have for that role. You have to have a certain sound for the role of the Fiordiligi, a certain sound for the Countess, another sound, a totally other sound for the Elvira. But for a leader recital, you have to have about 200 sounds in one evening. You cannot rely on one way of singing that role, give and take piano and forte and all this, okay. But in a leader recital, you have to be able to change colors all the time. Also, you have to be aware very much when you speak a poem, which, when we speak a poem, if I would speak a poem, I would not speak it up there, certainly not. But we sing up there, you see. And the difficulty for us poor sopranos is that the vocal line mostly is way up, and we would speak it here in this kind of range, or maybe there, or there, or there, but not whoops down up there. Now, to match the two things, the high-lying sound plus the way you would want to express it, there comes the difficulty for the female leader singers. The men don't have this difficulty. They sing in their speaking range. Now, the overriding ruler for the singer is, of course, the composer. You see, you can recite a poem in many ways, but you can only really give the one interpretation when you see what the composer has done with it. It's the music which gives you the expression. You have to listen to the music to get the expression, even if you would like to give another interpretation to the poem as such. By the way, this is one of the great pains I have, not only pain, but the great furies and the great, with the producers of nowadays, that they not listen to the music. They do it the way they think the text should be interpreted, not listening ever to what the music says about the text. It is the music which is in a music piece the overriding ruler. Apart from, that was fine. That was okay. It better goes on like that. Sounds, really sing them. You're putting your mouth into the position of an N and M, and never hear any N's and M's with most of you. That's most peculiar. Yeah, I wonder what you're doing when you sing Italian. Oh boy, I'm going to kill you. but you did otherwise it would have been legato. Yes, it was, but you killed it with your own chin. The T is before. But you're doing
Yeah, it's because the ends, I'm bringing my chin up for the ends.
No. You do in between. You do this thing. Yeah. So,
Can I just try that?
That's really perfect. Yeah, good, that was it. Yes. That's it.
Wie bewegt dich dann nach dir mit ganzer Seele? Wie viele Blicke schickte dir mein Herz? Mehr als der Tropfen hat der Fluss im
Fluss. Nein, it's not like floozy, it's fluss. Like fluss. Yeah.
Fluss.
Yeah. I'm always disappointed with those E's. They're having some kind of tweedy roughness to them, which really... No. Give me some lovely sound there.
Wie viele Blicke schickt ich dir entgegen? Mehr als der Tropfen niederströmt im Regen.
In the 60s, Schwarzkopf's recitals and recording sessions with Walter Legg occupied much of her time, and she reduced her repertoire to 6 operas, including her 3 great Mozartian roles. Fiordiligi in Così fan tutte, the Countess in Marriage of Figaro, and Elvira in Don Giovanni.
Well, I can't say that I was particularly in love with the Countess and the Elvira, because they asked me to do it all the time, because obviously I did them rather well. And the Elvira is very difficult to do well, you see. The Elvira is a near hysterical woman, and you have to sing a Mozartian line while being near hysterics. technically, the difficulty is not high, it's not low, it's not even fast. Actually, one of the difficulties is that it is not fast. And you have to sing eighth notes, a row of eighth notes, on one syllable, 2 notes, and usually it comes out like which is already terrible because it is supposed to be legato. You see. Number one. The second difficulty is, as in all musical pieces, the piece should have a psychological development. Now, when you start out after the recitative with this softening down, why do I do this? After all, he did betray me. Okay, you can start, you see me tradi. No. But the second time, it must have dawned on you how you're having been really derailed by this man, and you must sing it, at least I did, with the utmost fury, fortissimo. And the third time when it comes, you must by now be so through the middle that you can only weep. Of course, you must never really weep. It must be in the tone, the weeping. And it has to be, if you weep, it better be piano. And then it has to build up to an even greater, demonstration of trying to save the man, to save the man from disaster, you see. That is the difficulty, to go through a psychological development within the given, fiendishly difficult to execute music.
Schwarzkopf gave her final operatic performance in 1971. While she continued to give leader recitals, Walter Legge encouraged her to start teaching, though she initially thought she couldn't do it.
He says, "Oh, rubbish, my dear, you can." I said, "I can't teach, I won't, I don't want, and I can't in the first place." And he said, "Rubbish, rubbish, rubbish, you can." And right he was, you see. Well, he knew many things, and so he knew that too. But we went first together. We went to the Juilliard in New York, and to various other places, San Francisco and so on, and Bloomington and Italy and whatever, and did the classes together. And he really set me up that way, because I noticed that we reacted entirely in the same way. We didn't have to look at each other really in order to exclamate whatever there was to say, or even make the same gestures. So that was marvelous to have this built up into, let's say, a new career, but it is still in my own way of life. It's still in music and in singing.
It was such an extraordinary musical partnership, and obviously a private one, that it must have been a huge loss when Walter Legge died. Did the teaching help you to carry on in that way?
Most certainly, yes. You see, the San Francisco people came about 2 weeks after he died, phoned me and said, "Well, you were supposed to come, the two of you. Would you mind coming alone?" And I said, "Well, give me 3 days. I'll think about it." And then I knew what of it. That's why I made you do it. This is why I made you do it. Come on, you chump, do it. Okay, I said, yes, of course. Mm-hmm.
Do you consider yourself to be a severe teacher?
Yes, I tell you, not in order to be severe, but because the life of a singer is first short, secondly terribly hard, thirdly there are so many people who think they ought to be singing and ought not, and they are never told because they are a source of income for some teachers, sometimes, unfortunately. And also the time to learn is so fiendishly short. There are many things that have to be learned for the singer. It's terrifying, really terrifying. So if I'm not trying to do it in the shortest, bluntest, sometimes perhaps cruelest way, one talks around the bush, and there is no time to talk around the bush. No. You see, and they all know it. And I have yet to meet the one who doesn't subject themselves willingly to this treatment in order to learn the craft in the few years given to singing. Not those little girl sounds. And not those squeezed vowels. Ever. 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 Okay. Don't zigzag between the sounds. And the me shouldn't come in at all. It's kind of little itsy bitsy. No. Really feel that you are burning up. Was, lieve Mutter, das Herz verbrannt. It is a cry, but a sung cry. You see, singing is akin next to a dancer's life. A dancer's life is much shorter, naturally. But a singer's life, especially a woman's singer's life, is much shorter than anybody else's profession. And you have a long time for the learning. It takes a long time. Not only that you know what you have to do, but it sinks into the instrument. The instrument will respond the way you want it to do. That is years and years and years of learning. And one does it without any complaint. I didn't know that we were going out or dancing or restaurants or didn't come into the question at all. Not at all. There was nothing else but all the things which went into learning this profession.
Descubra el espectáculo de la imaginación en Amor de Luna y otros, en Cultura en Movimiento. Al terminar, Ave Verum, Corpus, ópera y tango tango. Interesantes cortometrajes en El ojo en la cerradura.